let's bring our guest back. Returning champion, CEO of The Sims.
CEO of our neighborhood, captain of the OHA or whatever of the Sims.
Oh yeah, captain of the HOA.
Yeah, HOA.
It's OHA.
Sorry.
Owners Home Association. It's like Latin grammar. Hey, welcome back, Doctrix, Anna Morel. Anna, I feel like it's been since AFS. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. That's what I'll say. I'm doing good. But really just busy for a while and hoping that will stop and that I can stop, being a wage slave one day.
Well, we can dream, can't we?
Yeah.
Don't we all wish?
I love the commitment to the bit happening in chat right now, by the way. Yeah. You can go see Anne Prentice at the Virginia Renaissance Fair.
Dude, I loved Anne Prentice.
Anne Prentice was so cool. What a great name. Shirley, do you know Anne Prentice?
Yeah, we've been in passing.
So
that's
Anna, Daisy, while I was in the woods, you two prepared something that's been in the works for like months now, right?
Okay, I gotta say, really give Anna way more credit here because I just was like, okay, here's all the details you need to know about the stream, and Anna is like the mastermind genius who put the rest of this thing together. so like we have on stream talked a number of times about astrology and adjacent topics. And every time, Dom, you seem to enter the field and claim Catholic and claim demonology and
I'm gonna cut the Dom cam for this. Okay, Daisy, let me cut the Dom cam for this official statement. Are you ready?
Okay, I think you need to tell us about this.
Okay, I'd like to get this off my chest. Okay, hi everyone. I am a folklorist, Dom Tartaglia, and I know nothing about astrology. And I have been told that not only does this make me a bad bisexual, but it makes me a bad folklorist, which both offend me on an existential level. And here's the reason. Does anyone in chat know that feeling when you were kids, when like you wanted to talk about Rugrats to your friend that didn't have cable? And you were like Tommy Pickles, and they're like, I watch PBS. Yes. I only know Dragon Tales. Okay?
Yes.
So growing up in my house, here's a list of things that were demonic in my very Italian Catholic family growing up. Okay?
I need to listen to this. Is okay.
Astrology?
Somebody play bingo. Play bingo for yourself.
Yeah, play bingo. Okay? Play bingo. Astrology, yoga, Earth Day.
What?
Islam, Buddhism, the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, all of that was of the devil.
All of that's demonic.
All of that is demonic.
Okay.
And so, and Death Loris in the chat is that kid with no cable, okay? So all my friends are like, wow, such a Pisces thing. And I'm like, Pisces? All I know is fucking Zooboomafoo.
All I know is that stars make cool shapes sometimes.
Rugrats and Dragon Tales don't overlap for you. I think
they overlap for me.
Rugrats with Kimmy.
They overlap with me.
I babysitted the kids in the cable who couldn't say shut up. I am like that when it comes to astrology. I am that kid for astrology. So that being said, Anna and Daisy are going to be my guides.
And for, I guess we should say, like, for reference, Anna and I are very into this as fans.
Yes.
But we are enthusiasts to the point where we're like following all the pages, the meme pages on Instagram and shit. Like we have read our own charts. Yeah. We have delved into beyond the first sun sign. Like we know our own like charts.
Oh yeah.
I should say. And like can kind of get like vague interpretations of other people's charts. But we're not astrologers, but we are like on the other spectrum of very interested in this subject and find it very compelling to engage with.
Anna, you've done some academic research on astrology, correct?
Yes, yeah. I have. So as somebody who's an enthusiast, who was in American Studies, right? Doing my PhD, I noticed that there really wasn't a lot written about astrology that was taking it seriously from like a cultural studies standpoint.
Yes.
Nothing. So that really was what got me into it, because I was like, okay, wait, this is something that I find interesting. All of my friends find interesting except for Dom.
It's not that I don't find it interesting. It's just all I know is Zooboomafoo.
He said it's
talk to me
demons.
about Chucky Finster.
So many demons.
I've got a lot to catch up on, Anna. I've got a lot to. I think it is interesting. I want to be a fish.
I gotta say,
okay, I'm glad we'll accept that at least.
Yeah, it's very interesting. People tell me Pisces, Leo, Pisces, and I think about those statues of like the mer lions around Singapore. That's me. That's cool.
That's cool. That's a good starting place.
Yeah.
Anna, do you know Emily Rideau?
Not sure.
Okay, she was a folklorist who was in the grad program at University of Oregon when I was an undergrad. Mm-hmm. So she's like ahead of our cohorts, but she is now a professional astrologer. So if you want to, I know that
what
there's
folklorists do.
Hashtag what folklorists do. I know that there are another like handful of folklorist like trained graduate students of folklore who are in this world of astrology.
Practice.
But I just dropped her she does like astro yoga and stuff. I just dropped her handle. If you want to talk to like an actual astrologer who is a folklorist, like we have sources for you.
Hell yes, that's great.
So I want to like just plug some other people who I happen to know who like do professional astrology.
And I just want to say astro yoga would trigger my dad so hard.
It was also celebrating Earth Day at the same time.
Oh my god, if you do that on Earth Day, he might combust.
I follow her on Instagram. She posts insightful things.
Thought I was going to be a priest for a while, people. You know what?
That's just...
How am I not a priest? How am I not a priest? I have a captive audience that I make corny jokes to once a month or once a week. I was going to say...
Captive audience once a week. There's lots of professions, including Twitch streamer, that don't require you to be a priest to obtain.
This is a much more cool vocation.
Yeah. Way more new age.
The history of the Catholic Church and astrology is actually pretty interesting as well, because they were, astrology was pretty closely aligned with astronomy in general, and therefore with like all of learning in like
all of learning
like in like the Roman Empire into like Italy and like up until around the the Reformation time period. Then people who had printing presses who were doing like anti-pope stuff were also doing printing about astrology, and popes didn't like that, so they were like, this is now actually going to be bad for Catholics. So it didn't really happen until like, late 1500s or so that astrology starts being considered maybe we shouldn't be like encouraging this as a practice, because it was just like something that everybody did, literally.
Yeah.
Up until then. So it's an interesting history. There's actually a book that looks really cool that I've like read a little chunk out of about it. I have the PDF. I can send it to you.
What's this PDF called?
I think it's Astrology and Reformation or something like that.
Oh, cool.
That's
cool.
It's specifically though about like the like histories of why astrology became associated and accepted by like Protestants during that time period, and not so much by Catholics.
This is fascinating to me. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, we can talk about that later. I don't want to delve into that too much.
Okay.
Yes, let's get to
I want to say...
Go for it, Days.
I want to say, for those of you who can't read my sign, because I know it's a little bit small on the screen, I did post it on Instagram, but if you are into astrology...
I'll blow you up, Daisy.
Oh yeah, blow me up. If you're into astrology, I think it would be really fun for people to, one, post your own big three in the chat. So
also, hi, baby cat. Baby cat, you're on screen.
Yeah, baby cat's on screen. Your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. I think it'd be fun if you could if you figure that out and post it. If you already know it and post it, that would be kind of fun to get like a chain going of that. And then also, I know Dom kind of already gave his away a little bit, but if you want to guess the big three for Anna and me, I think that would also be funny. By the end of the stream, we can confirm. I mean, will be revealed when we get into it, but I think it would be funny.
Yeah, go ahead. Guess.
Like,
I was going to
going
start
off. Let's go.
Let's go.
I was
Let's go.
going to start off with as part of my positionality statement.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's go.
folks, we love positionality.
But
This
I
is
will
writing
skip that.
culture all over again.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I will skip that then. So instead, I'll just say that I just wanted to talk about astrology because I am super interested in it. Not a professional, however. I've written a couple of like semi-academic papers about it, and I have 3 encyclopedia articles that are published in this little book here.
Burying the fucking lead, Anna. Burying the fucking lead, Anna.
Specifically
Yo.
about astrology in American popular culture is really like what I know the most about. So in the 20th century. So the ones that I wrote about were about like information technology, about newspapers and astrology columns, and then about love and sex and astrology. So those were my 3 articles that I wrote that were published. But then I also wrote about astrology and horoscope readings online, and kind of with a verbal performance framework around it previously. So Anyway, I'm not going to reveal my positionality in terms of my star chart yet.
Okay. Okay.
I will say that we will be talking about that later. And also, as like Daisy and I were talking, we wanted to also talk about how it relates to folklore. So
Please.
we'll be discussing it. My stance is that if memes are folklore, if fortune telling is folklore,
Yes.
if religious practices of like that are part of everyday life, like Catholic prayers to Tony turn around, are folklore. If fandom is folklore, remixing institutional.
What's up?
Do you not know that one? Sorry, this is my grandma's Catholic finding things prayer.
Oh, is that St. Anthony?
Yeah, it's Tony
Hell
turn
yeah.
around.
Okay, I love that shit. I love that shit.
That's really what happens if you find it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so that was what we would do if we lost something, and then she would take me to go give $1 to the poor if we found it.
Aww.
But anyway, she was a cool Catholic overall. Anyway, so if like fandom is folklore, remixing institutional text and creating new stuff with it is folklore, astrology is also folklore. There. Okay. Let me know when we're good.
We're good.
Okay, cool.
Oh, God.
So in 1973, during an interview, during the twilight of the notorious dawning of the Age of Aquarius and the rise of many New Age
Yes.
in the 1960s and 1970s, Harvard professor of divinity and theologian Dr. Harvey Cox pondered students' increasing interest in mysticism and astrology. Dr. Cox described how students would come to him after class and ask what his sign was, despite his very traditional Christian beliefs overall.
Okay.
Though he resisted at first, doing the classic annoying thing that people do who hate astrology, which was challenging students to guess his sign, Cox eventually saw that there might be an important function for the students engaging in this conversation. Cox explains to the interviewer, "Do you know what people are saying when they ask you your sign? They're saying, I want to relate to you, to be intimate with you in this kooky, interesting, groovy way. A way that is going to blow the minds of those GD rationalists." I don't know if we can curse on stream.
Oh, yeah.
You can totally curse.
That
on stream.
ship
It's
has
okay.
sailed,
I do
Anna.
like
You
that.
can curse.
The logical people who have organized our society have defined us into categories that we can't live in. To Cox, the young people's interest in astrology represents a small act of resistance against the expectations of a stifling society and the desire to connect with others in a more profound way. As a non-professional astrology enthusiast, for me, the most fascinating part of astrology is its usefulness as an interpretive practice and its use of shared symbolic language, and how our understanding of the stars above reflect our beliefs, our relationships, our like power systems and realities on Earth. So we're going to be talking about what we can learn about ourselves through astrology, what we can learn about our society as well. So let's advance to the next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Totally agree.
So what is astrology? it's actually pretty difficult to define. This is for Dom, but
yes, thank you. I love an iceberg meme, so this might help.
Until a few hundred years ago, the term astrology was literally interchangeable with the word astronomy. And at the most basic level, astrology is basically the study of the stars or celestial bodies. Nowadays, it also refers to those celestial bodies in relationship to human affairs, as well as the variety of beliefs and practices and traditions that derive from that scholarship. In general, we all get that the sun and the moon are extraterrestrial natural forces that affect things on Earth, right? The moon governs tides, our sun provides heat, and they're all tied to our concepts of time. Lots of important things, right? But astrology in particular goes more into the beliefs about how the cosmos is directly affecting human lives. And I'm not going to go into the depths on the mechanics of astrology or on the extensive history of astrology around the world. There are lots of good histories of astrology, specifically about it like in ancient Egypt and Greece and China, as well as Indian astrology, the history of that. These are all super complex and really scholarly things that you can read about this. But we're going to be taking a crash course here for those who are less familiar. Overall, I think it's pretty fair to say basically everything that I have read about astrology has this like vast statement that I like hate, but I think it's probably true, that all societies have incorporated the stars and planets into their stories, myths, beliefs, and practices. I feel like that's a stretch to say all. I just never want to say that, but it probably is true. And weaving celestial bodies into our everyday lives in terms of our creative and expressive and useful practices that we do is just a part of our contemporary society as well, not just historically. Astronomy and astrology have shaped rational things like science and agriculture and time, while also helping to form our understandings of the world in more imaginative and social ways. And it's expressed in our language. So overall, we're going to talk about astrology as the study of the relationship between the stars and planets and affairs on Earth. We're going to move on to...
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anna, where are you on the iceberg?
Oh, on the iceberg?
I think I'm 3.
I would say
I don't understand what the nodes are about.
I kind of get nodes. I know what the sidereal like charts are. I know what synastry is. I do not practice. I know what the houses are. Time nomad, I do not know. Minor aspects, I barely know. I would say I'm
the houses. I vaguely understand the houses. Yeah, I think if I had to be in one, I'm probably on the 3rd one.
If anyone knows what archons or planets means, DM me.
Please,
so fucking cool. That sounds so
archons
fucking cool,
planets.
dude. That sounds like StarCraft lore.
Yeah, please.
Okay, not quite 5, but definitely a 4. Okay.
Well,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, hell yeah. We got some good reasons.
Yeah, I'm like in between. I dabble in 4, but mostly in 3, I think. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So, by the way,
I'm strongly too.
Cool.
Strongly too. Good.
I know everything but modality, isn't that?
Okay, we can talk about that.
We'll get there. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So let's move to the next one. Astrology seems like a bunch of jargon when you're not familiar with it, because there's a lot of specific terms that are used, specific language, as it's a core way of its communication. So, but it's relatively accessible, I will say. Lots of people who are interested in astrology teach themselves through lots of different means. You just have to put in some time to learning about it. Overall, though, there are astrology terms that you're probably familiar with, which are the 12 signs of the zodiac. Are you familiar with those, Dom?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. And then the planets in the solar system. Classic science thing that you have to learn.
Love that.
Classic.
And lunar and solar phases, maybe a little bit. These celestial bodies have been symbolically imbued with many historically and culturally located, but still fluid, meanings that are used for interpretation. So when you think of the sun, that big hot circle that travels across the sky during the day, what do you think of, Dom?
Kind of like a farmer who's got like cattle on some island in the Mediterranean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Go back to
like
Helios. Yeah.
Shepherd? Is he okay?
Yeah, he's more of a. Yeah. A shepherd is more of a grazy thing, but he's got a big lot of livestock. I go back to Helios for some reason, but yes, go on.
Life-giving, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, plant parent.
Just saying. You're the one using harvest and agricultural terms over here.
I really like though how Dom is immediately going to very visual, like imaginings for these sort of symbols.
I think that's what always attracted me to myth.
That's
the visual
great
nature.
It's a great way to sort of think about them and kind of like memorize them for yourself, understand the different signs and meanings of planets. So I'm not going to go into like super detail here, but there are 12 zodiac signs based on 12 constellations that are visible during certain periods of the year at night. And the signs are associated with an element. So this is the like next sort of obvious thing is which element these are associated with, whether it's fire or earth or air or water. And then they're also associated with a particular planet or celestial body, and modalities, which are whether they are cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So that has to do with the way that they sort of interact. And
okay.
Between all these things and our symbolic understandings of these planets or signs or whatever, they are imbued with a culturally decided upon vibe, distinguishing characteristics about them. And the period of time that you're born corresponds with particular planets and solar system bodies being aligned in different locations in relation to the zodiac. So we're going to skip through this. Next slide, please. So there's a relationship between one planet and all of the other ones. There's many relationships, and those are called aspects, the like angles that they form when you put them on a chart, a circle chart. Those are important because they describe the sort of emerging interactions during particular points of time. That has to do with like readings, and when you get into like what will happen in the future or what has happened in the past, they exert influence upon each other. Houses, there's 12 houses, each is ruled by a zodiac sign, and they're each associated with a different aspect of the world or life. So there's lots of subgenres of astrology readings, and they, in essence, those kind of subgenres just are a way of describing the consistency in terms of the content and the form. Personal horoscopes are the ones that were most common in the 20th century, which involve astrologers identifying a future time interval, usually a day or a week or a month or a year. I would like to know if everybody here, other than Daisy, did you ever see like newspaper horoscopes when you were like growing up?
Oh, totally.
I certainly did.
And especially, I would say more like magazines. And then I
definitely remember the newspaper ones. They were by like the serialized like 3-panel Spider-Man comic in the Toledo Blade.
Yes,
But again, Anna and I grew up reading like the same newspaper.
Yeah, the Blade, baby.
The Toledo Blade, baby.
Also the Sentinel Tribune, though.
Joel, what is up?
Joel Chapman, welcome back. Welcome back, Shinji Chapman.
So those were sort of like that's a traditional format for astrology consumption in 20th century. Nowadays, there are horoscopes that are circulated online, but there are also other kinds of readings that happen all the time as well. And most of the time, those horoscopes were based on your sun sign or your natal chart placement of your sun sign on the zodiac. So for Dom, can I reveal?
Go for it. Go for it. I'll be the guinea pig.
The Pisces. You would read your, like, it has the dates right there, and then you read the sort of description about that. That's kind of the common mode of consumption in popular culture in the 20th century. Let's move on to the next slide here. We're going to get to the critical part.
Can I say
here.
something about this, though?
Oh, yeah.
This is me, right? This is Pisces?
Yeah,
I did say to Summer, my grants and programs manager, one night, like after like we were closing down the festival stage. Oh! Look at this fucking yeah, Shirley can't be doing on top of it. Hey, look at this fucking ice and fire connection here. Yes. Drop ladders, Hillbilly Eilish. But I was like, I was in the van driving back to the hotel, and I'm like, can I just put on Frank Ocean and just like, I don't have to cry, but I just have to have feelings right now. And Summer, my programs manager, was like, yeah, if you must. And yes,
if you must. If you must. What a fucking earth sign right there.
If you must.
Sometimes I need to put on blonde. And have big feelings everywhere.
Wow.
That's amazing. I feel
Bit Daddy returns. What's up, Bit Daddy? Capricorn. Let's go.
Capricorn, Bit Daddy.
My two favorite Capricorns, T. Paupus and Jesus. And yes, I know Jesus is a Pisces. He gets both. Anyway, you said advance?
Yeah. Go to that next slide. But that was to kind of show how signs with the different characteristics based on these different like modalities and cultural assumptions. Okay, next. So there's a little person named Adorno who spoke a lot about
a
little person. He's just a little guy.
Just a little guy.
In cultural studies who spoke about astrology in a way that I feel very torn about because he's dismissive and rude. However, as an astrology enthusiast who also is a Marxist apologist, at least, I have complicated feelings.
At least.
Anyway, I'm going to start with the historical accounts over here. One on American astrology in like colonial times by Tomlin describes the way in which Christian colonizers in the U.S. saw their religious values aligned with the interpretation of stars in almanacs. To them, the starting point for understanding the religious significance of almanac astrology is the belief that God disclosed himself and his ways through the workings in the natural world. Reading the skies for signs assumed the presence of an omnipotent sign sender. So that was sort of his explanation of why Christianity and astrology was intertwined in the U.S. from the very start in popular culture. To speak accurately and respectfully about informal socially shared beliefs like astrology, we can employ many different terms like folk belief or vernacular belief or belief. These terms are often used to describe differences between sort of everyday practices of belief in comparison with official doctrine or religious institutions. In general, many cultural studies scholars in the mid and late 20th century saw the presence of astrology in mass media as contradicting the advancements made in astronomy and science. This was based on the, I would say, incorrect and often racist and classist assumption that irrational beliefs and folk traditions are residuals from our quote-unquote more primitive belief systems. And those who don't appreciate the uses of folk knowledge kind of use a pseudo-evolutionary assumption that folklore is only practiced by less civilized people or less smart people who have not embraced the tenets of enlightenment. In the 1950s, for instance, Adorno identifies anti-rationalisms like New Age cults and religious fundamentalism as developing alongside advances in communicative technology. He was coming from a place of legitimate Marxist critique, criticizing astrology extensively, especially when he was writing about the Los Angeles Times astrology column. Unfortunately, it echoes some of these assumptions about astrology as irrational or primitive, like many folk beliefs are stereotyped to be. Adorno argues that superstitious beliefs, like astrology, were once merely awkward attempts to cope with problems before the development of more rational and scientific means. He goes on to dismiss astrology and occult practices as, this one really hurts, The metaphysics of dunces.
Ooh.
Yeah. The mediocrity of mediums, Adorno asserts, is no more accidental than the apocryphal triviality of the revelations. Just rude. He sees astrology and other irrational beliefs promoted through mass media as a mode for quelling social unrest. Adorno linked the presence of astrology in modern media to late capitalist ideologies of consumption and labor by doing textual analysis, as well as the rise of authoritative regimes. He basically sees the language of astrology as being encouraging of unquestioning docility, hegemonic norms, etc. However, as somebody who likes some of Adorno's work and also likes astrology, I will say that his qualitative analysis of language and symbols used in horoscopes is one of the few extensive ones that exist. So it's important
That's
to
a great compliment.
You can appreciate that as a folklorist. Hell yeah.
It exists.
It exists.
Yeah.
He talked.
It exists. It's also important to note that his criticism is specifically about the institutionalization of astrology in mass-produced print, and the public's involuntary consumption of them via newspaper. So he saw it as something that was being forced upon people.
He hates that I watched, like daytime TV astrology when I was like 6 or whatever. He was like, that's a scam.
Yeah.
Hold
However,
on. Oh, you did what, Daisy?
What? Don't worry
What's
about
up?
it. It's fine. Daytime astrology TV. I don't know. What's that?
California only channel you had?
No. Hold on. I'll find the person's name again. I watched like a documentary about this person too.
Anna, please
All right,
continue.
Anna, keep going.
Ignore the peanut gallery.
Walter Mercado. He's the cool Spanish one. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Well, I'm not supposed to think about it.
He's cool. Yeah, that documentary about him, wild. Anyway, Adorno's dismissal of astrology should be amended, though. So what might a skeptic like Adorno think about the idea that astrology now is decentralized in some ways, and there's a lot of sort of personal practices that are happening online and smaller subgroups that are creating content for each other, not for a broad audience necessarily. Well, post-colonial astrology, which was gifted to me by Bubbles, if she is in the chat.
Oh, Bubbles!
Yeah. What's up?
Which was incredible and honestly the most thoughtful and perfect gift that somebody's given me in quite a while. It was I was sick with COVID and she sent it to me and it was so sweet. Anyway, that's by astrologer Alice Sparkly Cat, who's sort of a niche micro celebrity of astrology on Instagram. She sees astrology as a communal practice. And they point out that the cultural context we project onto stars dictates what meaning we construct from the world, and also agrees that it's bound up with political economy, with militaries, with power, with race, with neoliberalism, gender, etc. However, it's still a storytelling practice. And as such, it's intertwined with these ideologies, but also can be used to either reinforce or reimagine or renegotiate these things. And so we can see that we can think about our relationship to our stories we tell about the stars as something that can be beneficial and useful. So next slide, please. Despite massive changes in understanding of the natural world in astronomy, astrology was very popular in the 20th century in print and mass media.
So cool.
Yeah, as evident in these ancient texts depicting astrology in the 20th century.
The ancient texts. The ancient ephemera.
The lettering is so fucking dope.
Yeah, it looks
yeah. I love it. I personally enjoy these a lot. And I think that we can think about the different ways in which it's expressed as being very historically and culturally located. Anyway, we continue to consume it every day. What are your favorite astrology pages or Instagram accounts?
Oh my god. Okay, hold on.
They've been waiting for this question.
Oh my god. It is just all right. Give me like a second, and I'll bring some up right now.
Chat to me. If you just find me an X-Men
yes,
astrology page, I'm down.
I like Moonamens.
Moonamens. Those are the little.
That's a good one.
Isn't that the Finnish cartoon?
No, that's our movements. Different. I mean, I like astrology, like astrology.
Cool.
And let me see all my results here. Let me see which accounts I'm interacting with the most. That's I like the Zodiac's tea.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Oh my gosh, I should just be like posting these in the chat.
Yeah, post them in the chat. I want to know all the good.
Can I ask a question about this, Anna?
Maybe off of Instagram, but I will say that Instagram astrology is super cool because it's like very niche to different like communities and identities. I feel like there's something special about that. Go ahead, did you have a
No, I just need lace and a romantic hairdo, apparently. I'm just reading Pisces for the fashion horoscope.
So not incorrect though.
Oh, well, I'm getting my first haircut in 3 years this week. So next is the lace.
It's very correct.
Amazing. Will you advance to the next slide, please?
Yes, Dr. X.
I like Wild Pippum. That's also
one?
good. Wild Pippum.
Pip
M. It's also pretty good. Okay, yeah. We all go post stars. Okay. I'm getting too excited.
Yeah. I'm so happy. So I need to know them all so I can follow them again because I'm slowly re-entering social media after a little hiatus. So astrology readings are very common. They consist of various parts if you want to break it down like that. But they often involve an astrologer providing advice, often articulating the link between celestial bodies and practical day-to-day advice. And they use powerful symbols and widely understood metaphoric language. If you specifically are interested in astrology, you can understand these at a deeper level, and they feel like you can kind of create your own meaning from your relationship with those different symbols.
Which is like,
yeah,
it's just so cool. Like, it's so cool to see how that converges with pop culture too. Like, you have to both know the astrology and then also the show that they're like comparing it to or whatever.
Yeah, no, that combination is super interesting. I think. Well, I feel like it's almost
it's an archetype. It's like
yeah,
it's like archetypical play. Like, there are only so many different kinds of characters you can have in a show, right? So at some point, if the character is consistent in their behavior, it's easy to pair that into all of these other kinds of archetypical ways of, I don't know, thinking about human behavior or personality.
Daisy, post your humor in the chat.
What?
No, nothing.
What?
Like the 4 humors. That's when you were saying
oh my god, humor. Well, I think aren't I bile? I don't remember.
Wait, black and
whatever.
yellow.
It's 4 humors.
You're
yellow.
I'm whatever the one that never mind.
Don't want to reveal too much.
All right, Daisy's been compromised. Great. Anna. You good there, Days? You good there, Days?
Yeah.
I wanna point out that a lot of the haters of which I have close to me, not partners or somebody super duper close, but like friends, who are like, this is just bad and stupid. They often also like say that the things that are said are kind of cliche or just common sense and vague. But I would argue that that's part of the function of it. In a way, it's using language to kind of bring people's problems back into a fold of something that's manageable for them. This is sort of a personal interpretation personalization, of like the use also of like proverbs or Bible verses, right? Is sort of like being able to reframe things in your life via something that you understand.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
Like, I've always felt like astrology, I like joke and I call it like therapy for people who can't afford therapy, in the sense that it gives you like another language to talk about the self and your relationship with others through, that is both hopefully enlightening. Yeah, you can use the exclamation point.
All right, chat. You heard them, chat. Like, you heard them, chat.
But it is like, it somehow provides you with like new knowledge about yourself and how you participate in the world. Mm-hmm. If you're using it in a critical way, you know, if you're actually Absolutely. Like, do I actually do that behavior? And then helps you like figure out or give new language to, I don't know, what could be going on in your life in ways that you just don't have access to outside of your own brain, because not everybody can afford therapy. And like, it's the language. And if the other people in your life are also connected to or are aware of this framework, you can say, okay, it's just like when XYZ sign does this. Like, you have that common language that you're identifying.
Absolutely. And it's something that you can kind of choose to identify with or not.
Or not.
Like, actually, this is my right sign instead.
Yeah, like Bubbly Like Soda was like, I'm a Gemini, but I have mixed feelings about it. Like, that's interesting.
Okay,
Geminis get a bad rap. Okay, they shouldn't.
They really do. And anyway,
that last aside, Daisy, like legit was actually very articulate.
Yes.
Both from like a class perspective and like, I don't know, it's just group therapy for people who can't afford group. Yeah, I'm with it.
That's right. And I also think that there's like a layer to that of queerness also being in that same, often like queer people often being in that same, both like hyper social and invested in the community, but also crossing into that class bracket of like not
absolutely
being able to
absolutely
afford that,
other marginalized groups, racial groups.
So exactly. Like, lots of different marginalized communities, I think, use this a lot to be able to talk better about themselves and improve their relationships. Like, I don't find this malicious.
No,
not at all.
People are, and some people use it in a way that I think maybe like takes over pieces of how they relate to other people. Like, they might say, like, I jokingly say I'm not allowed to date Geminis anymore, but it's not because I'm not allowed to date Geminis. It's just that the last 3 people I dated who were Geminis, I had a bad experience with. And that's what I'm actually communicating, right? I'm not communicating this type of person, right? Does that make sense?
It's a way of doing
anyway, I'm sorry. You have to stop. And we're getting far too personal from my comfort zone. My Capricorn moon is very upset with what I just revealed on screen.
my Pisces sun thinks that was brave and uwu.
Totally. No, it's super like, I think that as like astrology becomes more and more specific to groups talking to each other rather than mass media talking to them.
Yeah.
Right? I think that the kinds of advice that's offered also is not necessarily entrenched in hegemonic norms. And so there's like possibilities for reimagining things. And I think that that's like a really good aspect of it. I can read just specifically to that point, the Alice Sparkly Cat.
Oh, you got a copy of that book you used in the PowerPoint.
Hell yeah.
So astrology occupies a healing role in community. Folks come to astrologers when they feel stunted in their careers by lack of wealth, when they feel stuck in relationships, and so on. Those seeking astrological counseling trust their astrologer will not diagnose their problems with individualized and biological framework offered by modern psychiatric industry. They understand the lack of standardization within astrology means that no 2 astrology readings from different astrologers will be the same. People choose astrologers for their subjectivity. Not all astrologers know what it's like to experience racism. Not all astrologers know what it's like to encounter sexual violence or know how to, or to realize how normalized this violence is. Not all astrologers want to, choose to counsel clients through trauma. If astrology is a mental health, then it is an imperfect one because astrologers ourselves are imperfect. Astrology is a tool through which imperfect people try our best to talk to each other. And I thought that was just a nice sort of like summary of like how it kind of acts as a way of people connecting. She also does a really cool job in the first chapter talking about the way in which people how fandoms kind of relate to her experience as being like a writer of fan fiction, how that relates to it, writing with characters that will never belong to you, and talking about the sort of colonial aspects of astrology symbolism itself. Not going to go in the weeds there, but it's very good and cool. Highly recommend it.
That makes so much sense though, because like you could go to like I've had trouble finding therapists that like get polyamory or non-monogamous relationships, and they because sometimes they like center it and they're like, well, that's obviously the problem, and I'm like, it really isn't. It's about something larger that's happening like in the self or in the interpersonal relationship. So I can understand why astrology appeals to people who become or who like are marginalized by sort of dominant rhetorics of medicine, health and medicine, and to therapy and to all kinds of these other things. This makes like total sense now. When you wow, great book.
Way of framing it.
Everyone should buy this book.
I love that. You really should. Anyway, it'll also like teach you more about like the depth of astrology too. So anyway, also astrology itself, we should move to the next slide, has been important for understanding our conceptions of love and relationships and fate. And so you can talk about how astrology is found in everyday communication, but it's also in our understandings of relationships. I can expand on this. Hold on, I actually will expand on this via quoting myself.
Hell yeah.
I've always wanted to do this, is to quote myself.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Drink
Somebody
this shit in, chat.
Clip this historic moment.
Clip this, chat.
Okay, so examples of the use of astrology in the mediation of love and sex include 1, the use of calendrical astrology and auspicious dates in wedding rituals, 2, the concept of fated love and divination, and 3, practices and beliefs about compatibility based on natal astrology. Societal beliefs and practices regarding love, sexual activity, and reproduction draw upon normative notions of normative sexuality and gender, which are often negotiated through spiritual beliefs and institutions like religion. Because scholars have found that religious and spiritual beliefs shape intimate and romantic relationships, or help to, sometimes, or hinder them, they also influence attendant astrological rituals. So, for instance, and then I talk about religions, including astrology in sex and love rituals, and the widespread the widespread acceptance of astrology is demonstrated through the use of astrological readings in matrimony ceremonies, as well as conceptualization of love and matchmaking as ruled by fate. So talking about destiny and fated love, the concept of a romantic love as predestined, fated phenomenon is also represented in a lot of phrases in the English language, such as written in the stars or star-crossed lovers, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on to think about how romantic relationships in the popular culture that surrounds us have been linked to sense of fate, sense of sort of this celestial or cosmological thing that is bringing two people together. And I think that that's a super interesting thing to talk about. But there's also anthropological things that have talked about how rituals of astrology help shape relationships. So I'm not going to go more in depth on that right now, but I love the concept of astrology and love in particular, even though that's considered the sort of lowbrow aspect of astrology. That's why maybe I like it so much. I love the lowbrow. Anyway, moving on.
I love this. I love this book. This Linda Goodman. I love the art.
Oh, I know, it's so good. That's one that I have, but I destroyed the cover actually.
Oh.
That's a photo. Yeah. And then 12 Corazones is a cool way that I was practicing Spanish was watching this show. 12 Corazones is about it's a dating show that is about astrology signs and people like deciding if they're going to date this person based on their astrology sign or how hot they are or how good they are at doing random challenges. It's a dumb show, but the host is good. I don't know. It's funny. Okay. It's on Univision. Next slide. So we're getting into what we've been waiting for, the readings. So
we've been waiting for.
This is
time to roast. Time to roast.
Wow. I don't know what this says yet, but I'm very fascinated by it.
Okay, yeah. So